Should Robert Saleh be fired? Should he be fired tonight, tomorrow morning? Does he need to go? We're going to talk about it right after this. All right, so we're gonna talk about Robert Saleh, and we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the this, the that, and figure out whether or not he should be fired. Now, there's two different discussions, right? Do I think Robert Saleh is going to be fired? And the answer is no. I agree with a lot of other people that they're going to let him run it back with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. They're going to call this season a wipe. The starting quarterback got hurt. A bunch of starters went out on the offensive line, and they're going to call it a wipe. Okay, I get that. The question is, should they fire him? And here are the points of why I don't think it's a ridiculous question. The reason I don't think it's ridiculous is because Robert Saleh, first of all, let's talk about some of the things that we thought he was bringing when he came. I remember the first year being really excited about Robert Saleh because, in his own words, I like ballers. I like people with great attitudes, people who love to ball, people who could throw down and play football. Culture, all day long with the culture, right? A lot of great sayings, a lot of great big, powerful quotes that you could put in the bottom of your emails about culture and teamwork. Has the locker room been a good culture? I thought it was for a little bit, but have we handled adversity well? Has that locker room handled adversity well? Because remember, this was supposed to be a strength of Robert Saleh. You find out about a team when you face adversity. We're cutting players. Like, we're releasing players mid-season, right? Now, if you use common sense, this guy Amos wasn't very good, but he wasn't released because he was that bad. He was released because these guys can't seem to be, like, you have to imagine that maybe he was told Ashton Davis is going to play more, or he wanted more snaps, and he spoke out. That's not a good locker room. It's not a good locker room. Having ballers, having guys who love to play football, who love to play and love to work hard, in a great cultured locker room, they ask, how can I get more playing time? What is it that I'm missing? What is it that I'm not doing? Because let's remember, Amos wasn't playing well. He's not good, right? So there's no argument that it's totally fine to reduce his playing time, and they shouldn't give in to pressure of him asking. But when you had to release Michael Carter, who was supposedly this locker room leader that everybody loved, right? You release him, you bring up Otto Condon, and you don't use him. You don't use him. You keep using Cook, who's terrible. Yeah, he's playing better. He gets like 7 yards. He's powerful. He can get a bunch of yards sometimes on a carry, but he can't stop fumbling. And it's been a problem his whole career. We knew that. So every time he gets the ball, you got to cringe. $7 million. We're saying that we couldn't afford a quarterback, a good backup quarterback. Well, Mike White got $8 million from the Dolphins. That's a ridiculous amount of money, right? We can't pay a quarterback that much money. We're already too invested in Zach and Aaron Rodgers. But we spent $7 million on Dalvin Cook, who's completely worthless. Is he better than Bam Knight? Is he doing something Bam Knight couldn't do? So we're going to blame Michael Carter. Yeah, he dropped passes. I had no problem with him being benched. But do we believe in depth? Do we believe in benching someone for 1 game, 2 games, and then activating them again? Benching doesn't mean have to be the whole season. When I say hold people accountable, I'm not saying throw them off the team or bench them the rest of the year. We're talking about benching a guy for a game. This team does nothing. There's no accountability. And then suddenly they're releasing players. And now we got Dalvin Cook, who Bam Knight is better than, and Michael Carter is probably better than. I say probably because I know he wasn't having a good year either. And if you're going to bring up Israel Awakanda, let him play. Why wouldn't we let him play? You got Hall playing on a bad hamstring, right? He was questionable all week. You got Dalvin Cook who can't hold on to the football. You're practically out of it anyway. You got this draft pick. Why wouldn't you at least look at him? Let's see what we have. Let's see if he's any good. Let's look into the future. I mean, it's not even giving up, even if you're really trying to win the game. How do you know that Wakanda can't do it? I mean, all that we know, I hate it when they say we don't trust young players. You trust Dalvin Cook? All he does is fumble. He fumbles like all the time. He barely gets any reps and he fumbles. He's going to blame that on lack of reps? If we gave him the right amount of reps, if we played him as much as everybody else, he'd have 20 fumbles by now. And this comes down to Robert Saleh. The locker room is gone. Every time we're losing or something's going wrong, they fall apart. That's the opposite of a championship team. That's the opposite of a good culture. They're a horrendously bad culture. The worst kinds. As bad as any that we've had in any of the years. The only thing we don't have is somebody breaking someone's jaw in a locker room. Otherwise, it's as bad as it's always been. And that was supposed to be Robert Saleh's strength. And it's abysmal. Then we talk about the personnel decisions, and you're seeing it. Why is it that we fans know every move 2 weeks before him? He was still using Uzomah. The only reason that guy finally got out is because he got hurt. And then what happens? Jeremy Ruckert starts making plays. What took so long? We've been saying it forever. Why is he the last to know? Why do I know that at some point they're going to start using Izzy, and he's going to be great. And he's going to have some big runs and everything. And we're all going to say, why didn't we use him when we were still in it? It's like they made a decision about players. They make decisions. This player won't play until he has a year to develop because he's a rookie. This rookie will play. This rookie won't play. And it doesn't matter what they do at practice. It doesn't matter what the starters ahead of them do. Until it's too late and the season's messed up and we're losing games. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Why would you, after last week, continue to keep Zach Wilson on the bench? Like, how did you not know? Well, Boyle evidently sucked. It didn't help. Like bringing in Boyle didn't spark the team. It didn't do anything. He was clearly worse than Zach. And I say he was worse than Zach because we all know that Zach could at least scramble a little bit more. And he actually does make the pass sometimes. He doesn't do it consistently enough, but he's capable. We've seen drives where he makes really good passes. We've experienced that he's not the answer, but he's a better quarterback than Tim Boyle. And what do? They have it set up that we can't even use him. They have him as the third emergency replacement guy. And they have this guy, Simeon, that couldn't beat out Tim Boyle. He couldn't beat out the kid in Cincinnati that's stinking it up. He couldn't make a roster. This is the guy that we turn to. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that after Aaron Rodgers, what we had. But I can understand them thinking there was a chance Zach could be good. He looked improved. He played better in preseason. I understand that they thought he could be a competent backup. And then he was for a little bit. And then the offensive line got lost, and he mentally lost it and started to slide. Okay, this week you bring him back because you know Tim Boyle wasn't the answer. Or at least you have him as the number 2 so you can bring him in if Boyle continues to stink it up. I could have told you that we weren't going to score with Boyle and after the first drive. The second drive, he's missing guys for 15 yards. It doesn't make sense. I could tell my guy Vinny C. I could say, Vinny, go out for a pass. I'm fucking over 50 now. I'm shot. My body is shot. But I could drop back 3 steps, and I promise you, 9 out of 10 times, I will throw a 15-yard pass to his chest where he'll catch it. 9 out of 10 times. I play with the kids all the time at the school, and I'm throwing them passes, and they're more accurate than him. How could you be that inaccurate? He threw passes today that were 15 yards, 20 yards too high. How could he be in the NFL? He's not a rosterable quarterback. How did we go into the season with this guy? We thought Zach was bad? I've never seen a guy so bad. This guy, Strevler, is 10 times better than this guy. At least Strevler can run with the ball. So what the hell are we doing? And who has to be accountable? He's afraid to make decisions. He's afraid to make changes. So now what are we going to do? Start Simeon next week? Or is he going to wise up and start Zach? Or does he even want to win? I don't want to win. I don't know that I want to win. Why do I want to win right now? What does it get us? We scrape a game. Let's say we could beat the Commanders. We're not beating Houston. We're not beating Miami. What's the point? What's the point? But if they're going to try to win, at least we can get information about this team. We can see how bad they really are. And if we're trying to win and they march either Boyle or Simeon out there, you know that he's a bad coach. You know that he's a horrendous coach, that he doesn't know what he's doing. Because it's very clear and it's very evident that Zach Wilson, not saying he's great, I'm not going to even talk about him as far as how good he is or bad he is. He's the best quarterback on our roster. And if anyone doesn't see that, they don't understand and have never watched football. Because it's not even a discussion. He is clearly the best quarterback on the roster. So if the goal is to continue to try to win games, if they are not tanking on purpose and they want to win games, and any quarterback marches out to start next week's game that's not named Zach Wilson, they are inept and they are incompetent. And it's amazing that they're still getting to coach this team. Amazing. Because it's not even close. It's not even in the same realm. Now, we could sit all day and knock on JD, and we could criticize the organization for not being better prepared and not having better players. But if your goal is to win, then you should be playing the best player. Play the best player. He, unfortunately, is the best player on the roster, whether you like it or not. Some people say he's good, and it's just the team that stinks. Some people say Zach stinks. They never want to see him again. But he's the best guy we have on the roster. And it's no longer about confidence. Oh, we don't want to ruin his confidence, though. Well, who cares? He's gone after this year. So who cares? You stick him out there because he's the best chance to win. End of discussion. Let's take some comments. Wild Wave is here. You don't think Saleh should be fired? You think he should be given a chance with Aaron Rodgers? That's fine. What about when Aaron Rodgers is gone? From what you've seen for Robert Saleh, should he be the coach? Somebody just goes, this offense is historically bad. And when we say historically bad, we're not just using embellishing words. JW is 100% right. There are statistics that will back this up. You don't have to be a genius. I mean, you minus the safety, we scored 6 points today. We had great field position all game. Despicable. Atrocious. How am I? Here you are. Well, I was with Green Bean all morning. It's not like I was missing in action or anything. I was here like crazy. Joe said Saleh needs to go. Other teams are winning the same injuries. I mean, it gets to a point where today's the offensive line didn't play bad enough to justify their offense. I mean, the offensive line did not play bad enough, which is why we said right from the beginning, why isn't Zach in there? Guys are coming back. He's the guy that gives us the best chance of winning. If there was any chance that the Rodgers thing is real and he can come back, we should have been trying to win today. There's no excuse for us to have lost today. Right. And I agree 100% with this. 10 penalties today. It's 8 to 10 penalties every single week. Yes, some of them were bullshit calls, but it doesn't matter. There's so many that aren't bullshit calls that it just have to go with lack of discipline. And he's aware of it. He talks about it every week. Yeah, we got to do better about the penalties. No, not we, you. You're the coach. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. And I agree that he hasn't had a quarterback. I agree that Saleh hasn't had a quarterback. And that's why I'm saying they're probably going to hold on to him. We're going to see what he does next year. But that doesn't excuse him from everything. You could sit there and say he doesn't have a quarterback, but he also makes horrendously bad personnel decisions. He also has no control over his locker room. He also can't control the players. There's penalties all over the place. Defense, the last few weeks have been fighting on the field. Like you cannot put that on not having a quarterback. We could at least be a disciplined, well-coached team. We could at least help ourselves out even without a quarterback by not having penalties or having less penalties, the normal amounts. That's all I ask. And I don't think it's about needing to. I think that they're not going to make changes because I think that they just made this decision, right? Everything was built around Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to give them the chance with Aaron Rodgers. But my problem with that is, what about when Aaron Rodgers is gone? This is not a 25-year-old that's going to be our quarterback for 10 years. So what happens? Aaron Rodgers comes back. Suddenly we make the playoffs. We win 11 games, 12 games. We lose in the playoffs because we have a shitty coach. And the only advantage we have is the quarterback, but the coach is still shit. The offensive coordinator is like letting the quarterback call the plays. And maybe Aaron Rodgers is fine and everything, but maybe it helps to have an offensive coordinator. But anyway, maybe he loses the way he lost to San Francisco. Maybe he loses the way he lost those last bunch of years. Like, he gets us to the playoffs. That's great. That's fine and dandy. We lose in the playoffs. And then what happens? Next year we come back. Aaron Rodgers comes back a third year, gets us back to the playoffs. Hooray! And then we lose in the playoffs. Okay, now he retires. Right? What do you do with Robert Saleh and Hackett? You going to keep them? After what you're seeing right now, you're going to keep them? Like we're really going to be a team that holds on to. We're really going to hold on to our coaching staff based on the quarterback. That problem is that doesn't set a good precedent for the future. Winning helps the locker room by scoring touchdowns bodes well with the choir boy locker room. Yeah, look. Obviously, that's the adversity. So we got our answer though. We don't handle adversity well. And part of, by the way, when you start to fight and everything after a loss or two, that's what makes you spiral. That's why we can't even beat Atlanta, because the locker room has spiraled. Oh, there's no question. I mean, people keep telling me Arthur Smith's not that good. He's not that good. When you look at that roster and what he has a quarterback, how can anybody say, well, you could say he's not good relative to the rest of the NFL, but he's better than Saleh. He just is. I mean, he's clearly better than Saleh. Yeah, we have a quarterback. He was injured the first game of the. Yeah, but that's not what he means, Harlan. He's talking about the fact that the reason Saleh's losing is because he doesn't have a quarterback that's actually playing for him. But yes, Arthur Smith is a better coach. There's no question about it. Unless he proves me wrong, unless he proves the league wrong, unless he's able to come back and do something with Rodgers and then continue it without Rodgers, Robert Saleh is about the bottom of the barrel as you can be, because he is the coach of a team that has one of the most historically bad offenses in the history of modern football. And I'm not going to sit there and say it's just the coordinator. He's the head coach, so everything comes up to him. Also, he just sits there like a freaking potato on the sidelines while the games get away. He never does anything to change the momentum. He never goes over and talks to guys. It's ridiculous. His overall season is just signing Aaron's washed up. I think that's done. We're not signing any more of his people. If they go for that offensive lineman that's always hurt from Green Bay, I will be pissed. I will. I'll be very pissed. And that will tell you, I promise you, if we sign that dude from Green Bay, that offensive lineman, I can never pronounce his name, whatever his name is. If we sign him, it's just a sign that our organization is hopeless because he's an often injured guy, and we have to get young guys that are going to build years together. We should have our mistake was we should have done what we were already doing until we got into this mess of we have to win now. We were building a great core, we were building a great team, and we're trashing it now. And then we're never learning. Now people want Devontae Adams. It doesn't work. Trading your draft capital and getting these guys from other teams does not work. It works for certain players, for role players. It works when you have a great quarterback and you're putting the final piece on. When you don't have an offensive line that hasn't played together and you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't work to just bring in a big name. And yes, everyone's saying, well, Aaron Rodgers will be here. Right, so you trade everything to get Devontae Adams, right? And you have Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, and you have Aaron Rodgers, and no offensive line. And it won't work. It won't work. We need our draft capital so we can start building a real offensive line. Not just that prevents a lot of sacks, but one that creates holes and gaps so you can establish a running game. And then that brings the guys in the box. And then when you pass it with Aaron Rodgers, they go out of the box and you confuse the defense and you make yourselves impossible to stop. But a trash offensive line is not going to do it, and I don't care who the offensive lineman, who the quarterback is. It will not happen unless we build a real offensive line. What am I telling Jake Osmond? He knows that we need more than just Rodgers. He knows. This is a horrible offseason. And for Joe Douglas, when I heard how great he is, the best, Jeff Samuel give me a break. Well, here's the thing about Joe Douglas. Yeah, he's made horrible mistakes. The worst being the quarterback situation. This is his fault. He should have went out and gotten someone. He's made mistakes. Signing Cook was a stupid signing. You'd think that Jet fans were celebrating it, though. It was so stupid. It was like they haven't learned anything from the Levy and Bell fiasco. It's not how you do it, people. It's not how you do it. He should have been worried about the offensive line. They sucked all camp. They sucked. They sucked. And we're worrying about getting Cook. So stupid. It was so stupid. Made no sense. Oh yeah, well Garrett's open a lot, but obviously when you don't have a quarterback, look, I'm trying to separate the quarterback from the coach. Okay, I understand we don't have a quarterback. I understand that, but that doesn't excuse a lot of other things. A lot of teams don't have a good quarterback, right? It happens. You have the bottom 10 quarterbacks in the league. There are 10 teams that have one of the bottom 10 quarterbacks in the league. I know that it's the most important position, but it's not the only position. We have a great defense. We have good specialty players. We have a good wide receiver, a great running back. We have tight ends. It's not like the offensive line is 5 horrible guys. It's not. Tippmann played great today. Warren had 1 penalty, otherwise played pretty good. The run blocking is not great. But then again, the plays aren't very spectacular either. But the point is, we shouldn't be historically bad. Other teams have lost quarterbacks. Other teams have had to put bad quarterbacks on the field. But they haven't been this bad. That's what you're not getting. This is historically bad. You could right now, I can give you 2 hours, go online, search, and find me a team in the last 40 years that's worse than we are on offense. Find me the team. They have 5 offensive touchdowns in the last how many games? 1 offensive touchdown in the last 5, maybe, or so. It's some crazy thing. When do you see that? Do you watch? I watch other teams that suck. They still score touchdowns. Atlanta scored a touchdown today against our defense. They have that crappy quarterback who I think is trash. He's never going to be anything. They don't have a good offense, Atlanta, and they scored a touchdown against us. Why did they score a touchdown against us? Well, their offense was on the field a lot. Our defense got tired. But didn't their defense get – their offense, we shut them down most of the game. How come we couldn't take advantage of their defense being tired? Give me this shit. Like, that doesn't excuse them for everything. I understand we're not going to maybe be a playoff team or a great team, but we're the worst team in the NFL. We're going to lose the last 10 games of the year. We're horrific. We're historically bad. We don't score touchdowns. We don't score points. I knew we were going to lose when we were down 10-5 because we were down by 5. Unless we kicked field goals, and they are too stupid to do that. The second we got in field goal range, they should have kicked the field goal before they went backwards and blew it. It's ridiculous. And I don't know that Aaron Rodgers would demand that Robert Saleh. Here's the problem with losing. I don't care about Aaron Rodgers. Here's the hard part about losing Robert Saleh. He's an excellent defensive coordinator. He's an excellent defensive mind. So he's not like a Kotite or a Gase in that effect, because those guys had nothing, right? They were just trash. Whereas Saleh is an amazing defensive coordinator, and he's trash at everything else. He's a horrendously bad leader. He's the worst kind of leader. He leads with quotes. Anytime, okay, and this is what I want you to envision who leads with quotes. This is, I want you to think about this to understand this. A person who leads by saying quotes, no matter how meaningful they are, but there's nothing to back it up, that is a guy called The Situation on the Jersey Shore, right? This is a guy who was a drug guy. Now, credit to the guy. He's sober now. He's not a bright guy, though. He's not a world changer or a world beater, okay? He makes his living letting people film him be stupid and eat a lot of food. Now, wait a second. That sounds really familiar. But the point is, he says all these quotes all the time. Hey, without the battle, there's no fight. You can't win the fight without the battle. He says all these really cool quotes. And I'm not against quotes, but if all it is quotes and there's nothing behind it, then what is it but a bunch of words? Where is the backup for those quotes? Where is the team coming together? Where is evidence that the team is coming together instead of dividing from each other, getting frustrated and yelling and cursing on the sidelines, committing stupid penalties? I don't see evidence that he is a leader. I don't see evidence that he knows about and understands football. He lives by rules and doesn't change those rules. He doesn't turn the ship when it's not working because it breaks his rules. And he might not even know where the rules came from. Because it became, in his brain, the way he was trained in his trees of coaching, rarely start rookies. Don't rely on young guys. Don't rely on young guys. But he never questioned why. Now, he allowed AVT to play as a rookie. Sauce Gardner played as a rookie. So he's not complete, like if you're drafted in the first round, apparently he lets you play. But even Garrett Wilson, he wouldn't let get on the field in the beginning last year. And we were frustrated. We knew it before he did. We were screaming, what the hell's going on here? And it took him longer to get Garrett Wilson on the field. He's not able to identify or question his own rules. Why is it a rule that you can't use a rookie if they're better than the veteran playing ahead of them? Why? It doesn't make sense. You're going to say that you don't want to use Abba Wakanda because you're afraid he's a rookie. So what are you afraid of? That he's going to fumble? You're afraid he's going to fumble? Well, guess what? You're using a veteran, Dalvin Cook, and what does he do? He fumbles. So what's the point? Like, what's the thinking there? He's horrible at being his own person and learning from his own experience and seeing the way the game is being played and recognizing who is better and who will solve our problems. He's insisted all year on using this incredibly terrible tight end. And until he hurt himself, and hopefully, personally, he comes back for another team and he's, whatever. I don't want to wish bad on anyone. But hopefully we don't have to see him play anymore. And that was his last play as a Jet because he was terrible. And there's a much better player that was having their snaps and their reps taken from them. And that guy's name is Jeremy Ruckert. And it made no sense because Robert Saleh somehow got it in his head that Jeremy Ruckert belonged as the number 3 tight end. And it made no sense because everybody who's watching football, who's ever watched football, clearly could see that he's equal to Conklin. Conklin might be the better receiving tight end, but Jeremy Ruckert's the best blocking tight end. And it doesn't mean he's perfect. It doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes. But overall, he's the best blocking tight end we have. And overall, he's the less, he doesn't have the Ozoma penalties. And today he showed when you actually gave him a chance and he got more reps, he made a couple of nice catches. And I think he could be more of a presence in the receiving game. But why didn't Robert Saleh know any of this? Because he couldn't get over his rule. He's younger, so I shouldn't play him. I should keep playing the shitty player that's not as good. Crazy. Joe just flat out says that Saleh's a bad head coach. Well, so far he's been. Now, I can't sit there and say, is he not capable of becoming a good coach? Can someone grow? Anyone could grow at any job. Anyone could grow at any position. Anyone is capable of growth and capable of getting better. Okay? Pete Carroll wasn't much of a head coach when he first started. Right? He learns and grew. He talked to people. He went and worked for certain people. He went to San Francisco, defensive coordinator, went to college, USC, asked people advice. He reinvented himself, came back to the Seattle Seahawks, and became one of the great coaches of the NFL. So it is possible if he's willing to change and learn. The biggest problem Robert Saleh has is himself. He's stubborn. He's stubborn. He won't back down. He insists that he's right about things that he's clearly wrong about. You see him in the press conferences week after week, insisting it's not the play caller. The play caller shouldn't be changed. The reporters are like, you've tried every quarterback. You've tried every combination of offensive linemen. The only variable that's staying the same through this horrible streak is the play caller. Why don't you replace the play caller? Why don't you test to see what happens if the offense has someone different calling plays? And he will not do it. He keeps shutting them off. I can understand why you'd ask that question. No. Don't sit there and say you can understand why they would ask the question. We all know why they asked the question. Because Hackett is one of the worst play caller in the NFL right now. So when you have 32 of people in a certain job and you are the 32nd person at that job, you're not supposed to have that job very long. You're supposed to lose the job. Now, you could say, well, he doesn't have a quarterback and he's good friends with Aaron Rodgers, and next year he'll be great because Aaron Rodgers does great when he's his coach. Fine. But for right now, can we have someone else call the plays? What is that? Is that holding the coaches accountable? You're benching players? You're taking away other players' jobs? When do the coaches become accountable? Bench him! Take away his play calling rights. Have him sit there and watch somebody else do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? We're not going to score any touchdowns? A monkey could randomly pick plays out of the playbook. And it can't be worse than Hackett. It can't be. How could it be worse than this? We were starting the 45-yard line the whole game and couldn't score. 2 field goals. Because we got a lucky pass. It was not even a well-thrown pass. It was a lucky pass. He threw it. I'm not going to complain, even though that Wilson had to come back for it, even though it wasn't a great pass. At least he threw it. Thank you, Boyle, for throwing the ball. At least he threw it. And he gave our number 1 receiver a chance to make a play, which he did. Right? So that, and then after that, we killed the drive. We were back to being the most horrendous, most pathetic offense in the NFL. But luckily, we had gotten ourselves into field goal position. That's how we score points. We have to start with field goal position in order to score points. Otherwise, we don't score. We had 1 drive today where we had 3 or 4 first downs during the drive. 1! And we were excited about it. That's like the bar now. Oh, it's getting better, though. No, it's not. Watch every other football game. Every other game. And if you see a team that struggles to get first downs and they look as bad as we do, watch them the next week. Again, it won't be 2 weeks in a row. And if it is, it won't be 3. We're every week this way. This is who we are. This is our identity. We have to stop thinking it's going to be different. Every time that we receive the ball, when we come out on offense, the shit you saw today is the shit we saw last week, the shit we saw the week before. It is our identity. It is who we are. An historically shit offense. And nothing is being done about it. Nothing. What? Changing to Jim Boyle from Zach Wilson was going to fix this? Let's go to a quarterback that shouldn't even be on a roster. He shouldn't even be a roster. He's not a rosterable quarterback. It's a joke. Then we get this veteran guy that we picked up that couldn't even beat him out for the job. And this is what we're rolling out there. Quarterbacks get hurt. Other starting quarterbacks get hurt. It's not an excuse. You're supposed to have backup plans. And if Zach Wilson, who is the best quarterback we have on the roster right now that's healthy, is the best quarterback that's healthy, that's on JD, and that's on the coaching staff for not demanding a better option. For not running into JD's office and saying, we can't win this way. We can't move the ball this way. Can you imagine if it doesn't work with Rodgers? What if we go 8-9 or 9-8 with Rodgers next year and miss the playoffs? I mean, if you're a Jet fan, do you really not see that as being a strong possibility? Do you really have that hard of a time imagining it? What if he looks like the guy from Green Bay last year? What if he has some good moments, but it's inconsistent and he's not enough? What if he's getting sacked a lot and it's not enough? And what if Saleh finds a way? We lose lots of close games, but Saleh finds a way to blow it like he always does in close games. He's blown a lot of close games. Let's say he's mismanaging the clock, whatever it is. Let's say we end up 9-8. A couple of injuries happen again to the offensive line, whatever it is. What are you going to do? We're going to sit there with Saleh again, waiting on Rodgers if he comes back or not? Is there ever going to be a point where we're going to get out of this hell? And you know what? And I'm not even, you know why I can't scream to fire Robert Saleh? Because I honestly, and I'll be very honest about it, somebody here mentioned somebody, so at least they had a plan. They said Arbo or whatever, Harbaugh from Michigan, right? Who's a very good coach for the 49ers. So it's not like he doesn't have NFL experience and he's not a proven guy. He went to the Super Bowl. You got to have a plan, though. Right? I'm not saying just fire him because you're angry. You have to have a plan. You got to know somebody's better, and you have to say, is that guy going to get along with the team that we have? All those things got to work. But you can't just sit there and tell me that we're going to do nothing. Like, just do nothing and be expected as a fan base to be okay with it. It's just not okay. It's enough already. It's like you can't expect it. You can't put us through this every year. Find a freaking coach that has some experience winning. That's not burned out. Like, don't bring in Belichick. Not that he would ever come. Browns are winning with a backup quarterback, but poor Saleh can't win a freaking game. Yeah, they have a great defense and a crappy quarterback too. I would imagine their offensive line is a little bit better, but our offensive line actually played fine today. They're actually on their third quarterback, aren't they? I think they're on their third quarterback. Cleveland has Flacco playing. So I'll blame JD for this season. Yeah, I think JD deserves another chance because he's the one that brought the talent to begin with to get us this mad. But, Saleh's coming back. And amazingly enough, Hackett's coming back. And that's historical. Because in the history of the NFL, I am sure there will be no example of a worse offensive coordinator coming back the next year and keeping their job. Like, I think he will go down in history. And when you look at the year he had as a head coach with Denver, and then the year he had with us as an offensive coordinator, when you look at that piece of work, to think he's going to come back as our offensive coordinator in a year with Aaron Rodgers where we're really thinking we want to be a contender for a championship, it's absolutely historical. It's unheard of. It is 100% unheard of. And we better hope that Rodgers just calls every play from the huddle and that he's just a cheerleader. Yeah. But you know what? But so is everybody else that's ever been a general manager for the Jets. I mean, we had the one freakish year in 2015, and it meant nothing because we didn't make the playoffs. Because at the end of the day, we had Fitzgerald, and he threw interceptions, and then he sucked the next year, right? And then other than that, I mean, it was a little bit manageable at Rex Ryan when we had Sanchez, but that was because all we had to do was run the ball, and we had a great offensive line. But that's right now, our offensive line is not staying healthy for that to be the case. Maybe if our offensive line stayed completely healthy, we'd actually be able to run the ball well and be like those Jets, win ugly games. What's making them unwinnable is our offensive line is horrendous too. But it wasn't today. Today it was pure quarterback. Today it was purely the quarterback and purely bad coaching. Leave Boyle in for the tank. I agree. If you want a tank, leave Boyle in. But if they're trying to win and they leave Boyle in, that means they're inept beyond anything imaginable. But if they actually use him for the purpose of tanking, then that's actually smart. They're making the right decision. Boyle's a great way to tank. Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of people will say this is what they should do. But but is that what they're going to do? That's the question. Is Izzy sick? Maybe he's sick. Maybe that's why we didn't see him. But we didn't see him last week either enough. We signed Rodgers friends. We didn't sign football players. It's kind of true. It's hard to argue that. We all know it's true. And I thought the whole purpose was to hire football players. I thought that was what the new Jets were going to be. Luka, Gajorovic, Pratic. That almost makes me think you're from like my friend Christine's land of Croatia. I don't trust this staff to win with Rodgers for giving me overly pessimistic. I feel the same way. I feel like we'll be a lot better with Rodgers, but we're still going to play great teams. Like, you still have to play Kansas City and Andy Reid, the coach. You're still going to, Miami, everyone's going to have to accept this. They're really freaking good. They're really good, and they're going to get better. Like, in their offseason, they're probably going to keep improving their defense now. They're going to be really good. They're going to be like the Niners because they got the right coach from the San Francisco system. They got the genius. So they're going to build like a 49ers type team. They're going to be a tough defense, but they're going to be different than the 49ers. They're going to have the best offense in the NFL and just a really good defense, whereas the Niners have the best defense in the NFL and a really good offense. But it doesn't matter. They're going to be good on both sides of the ball, and they're going to be a real threat to win a Super Bowl. And just because you have Aaron Rodgers doesn't mean you're going to be able to beat them. Because it doesn't magically make it. It doesn't make us magically the greatest team in the world because you have Aaron Rodgers. The guy, and I'm not taking anything away from him. He's a great quarterback. He won one Super Bowl in his freaking career. He's not like this. It's not like bringing in Tom Brady, who's won 7. It's not like bringing in Mahomes, who's won half of the Super Bowls that he has years in the league. It's not the situation. The guy hasn't won a Super Bowl in 10 years. So he needs help. Starting with the top 5 defense, that's great. But that's not everything. We need an offensive line. And we need good coaching. Bad coaches don't win in the NFL. I mean, we could survive a shitty offensive coordinator with Aaron Rodgers, but Saleh's got to pick up his game. Because Rodgers is not going to discipline the players. It's not his job. He's busy. He's a quarterback. He's got to lead them. He's got to teach them. He's got to do this, that. He can't be the guy you also hope disciplines them. We need a leader. We need a leader. Yeah, look, John, you don't have to tell me. I worried about it when I saw the first Jets one drive. Let me go mess with Marcus. He'd like run around and mess with players, like joking around. I like look, and people say, "Well, that's a player's coach." No, it's not. Bill Parcells was a player's coach. There's being a player's coach doesn't mean you have to joke around with them. You still are a coach. I mean, go watch him. Bill Parcells is the class because he was so vocal about it, and like he didn't hide things. Like the locker room wasn't secret from what he said in the media or what he'd say out loud for the team. So he's a great guy. If you want to say, let's look at a Super Bowl winning coach, an elite head coach in the NFL, and see what they really do to become what makes them great. Parcells is great because it's all over the place. He's mic'd. There's tons and tons. If you follow all of Purcell's body of work, and the moves he's made, he's cut real players, contributors to his team. The year he won the Super Bowl with the Giants in 1987, it was the 86 season. The year he won the Super Bowl, he cut his number 2 wide receiver in the middle of the season because the guy was complaining he wasn't getting the ball enough. And Parcells cut him, released him from the team. And we all said, what the fuck? Because I liked the Giants when I was a kid. I liked the Jets better, but I still liked the Giants. I was a kid from New York. I watched all the games. Me and my dad would watch the games. I was like, why did they cut him? Don't they need him? And Giant fans were going nuts because I had a lot of friends that were Giant fans. And they were going crazy. But in the end, Parcells was right. Because Parcells will say, before talent, the number one thing you have to have is control, discipline, team, then talent. And if your coach is not able to understand that, you're in a lot of trouble. Definitely not. I mean, I feel bad for Mike LaFleur because right now he looks great to me. I mean, I don't see how anybody could argue that Hackett is so much worse than LaFleur. And I'm not saying LaFleur was the guy, but I have a little bit more doubt than I did because it feels like we are leagues worse than what we were. With LaFleur, we would put Josh Johnson in there and look good. That's what I'll say. Josh Johnson looked good with LaFleur. So Browns don't have a quarterback. Yeah, look, I mean, and the Browns aren't winning a Super Bowl, but at least they're not an embarrassment. Yeah, if yeah, I agree with that. If John Mara owned this team, he would be gone. He'd be gone. I mean, it's an interesting situation. It's a weird thing that they decided very early when Rodgers was out for the season and I think we all felt it, that they were going to let this group run it back. It's a weird thing because then it's like they have this free pass to be as bad as they want to be. Now, look, we don't have to give up our first pick, which is huge because if we finish 4-13, can you imagine the Green Bay fans? They'll be very happy about their second round pick, but they're going to be so pissed. They're going to be like, "Oh my god!" Because we're going to get to come in and get either trade back and have a ton of trade capital, or we're going to pick an elite player. Yeah, they've harmed our life. They really have. I'm not saying they've done it intentionally, but it's impacted our lives. I think any of us that really care about this team. There's a certain joy to winning. There really is. And I think if they could just give us that, it would be a victory. Like we'd all have it with us forever. We'd have this feeling of what it's like to win. We'd all feel like winners. We'd feel like winners with them because we stuck it out and we stayed, and we'd feel that we deserve something for that, for our loyalty, that we accomplished something because we stayed loyal to something. We stayed true to something. So they're punishing us with their ineptness and their incompetence, and that's why we get angry. People say, "But it's a sport; they're doing the best." Why do you get angry at them? We get angry at them because this is killing us. That's why we get angry at them. I tattooed these motherfuckers on my arm. And they keep losing. It's embarrassing. My best hoodie is a Jets hoodie. I got to wear that fucking thing. I got to hear it all day long. Oh, sorry, dude. Or your team sucks, you know. Yeah, I know. So I really thought you could be good this year. Well, Rodgers got hurt. Yeah. I didn't expect it to be this bad. Yeah, I know. Slow blows a lot of hot air and talks way too much bullshit for someone that hasn't done anything. Yeah, it's true. I mean, the only thing he's a great defensive coordinator. He could talk defense all day, and I won't argue with him. I'm not going to sit there and say that Robert Saleh can't sit there and talk about and give. He could write a book. He could go on a job interview and he could say, I could, within 2-3 years, give you a top NFL defense. He can. He can do that. But he can't be a head coach, at least not yet. It doesn't look like one. Still waiting for the receipts. Yeah, the interesting about Strevler is people could say whatever they want. You cannot convince me that Tim Boyle is better than Strevler, because at least Strevler had a way to move the ball. I don't know if it helps to do that, though, Then I think that we all know it's the case. Like, we know. I think we know. I'd bet my life on it. Like, I'm that confident. If Rodgers comes back, plays the whole year next year, and we don't make the playoffs, they're all gone. Unfortunately, JD will be gone. That's going to hurt. And the only reason why I'm so afraid to lose JD, I'm going to be really honest about this, is because personally, I feel, except for like one guy in 2007, who, you know, whatever his face is, I'm so bad with names. We have, for the most of our history of my 40 plus years, have had the worst GMs in the world ever. And it's so bad they set such a low bar that JD bringing in just a handful of the players that I could rattle off the names of still puts them above everything we've had. So my thing is if you're gonna fire JD, I don't care about any of them. You know, anybody under him. I don't care about any of the coaches. But if you're gonna fire JD, my fear is, who are we gonna get? Because we've literally we have ownership that's went to consultants. Like, we've done everything, and we've brought in such trash. We've brought in the worst people. So my fear is, what if we bring in more shit? What if they fire JD and they bring in the next guy and he sucks? What if he's another Isdick or whatever? And then we get another 5 to 10 years of sucking. I feel like we have to keep something the same. And he's the only guy that has something going for him. I could name a lot of really good players that were, and if he could just go, like, okay, everything we did was wrong. The last year we fell apart, made some horrible decisions, and just put JD back in the mind of, after Rodgers is gone, if we don't make the playoffs, just keep drafting great players and keep doing a good job managing the money. And we have to find a new coach, and we have to get a powerful coach who can run everything else. You just get the good players, pump in the talent, and we need a strong coach, a head coach that can run everything else, that will handle the coordinators, that will handle the style of offense and defense, and a guy who's proven, if you give me the talent, I'll win. And that's that. But I don't know that I'm comfortable giving away JD unless you tell me there's a GM coming in that's left another team for whatever reason. They had their fallout, and we get a GM that's a proven winner, that has a track record, and could beat, who has a resume better than JD's. And I'm not talking about record. I know, but you have to understand, he took over the worst roster in the NFL. He took over a disaster, JD, and he's trying to rebuild it. And he did a great job in bringing in a lot of great players here. He failed in having a quarterback ready this year. He's had bad luck with the offensive line, and it is bad luck. And he it looks like he hired the wrong coach. But he hired a coach that could bring a great defense. He was right about that. You can't foresee everything. He was right about the vision that Saleh would bring us a top 5 defense. He was right about it. He just didn't know he was going to be a crappy leader. It's hard to know that. He's a charismatic guy. He talks a good game. We all liked him in the beginning. He had us brainwashed and fooled for a long time, at least most of us. So our Biv, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that super chat. It's nice. We have to judge Salah based on how he is doing the things he controls. That's right. That's a fair and really good point to make. Does Robert Saleh have control over the discipline of the team? And after this many weeks of those penalties, should they have been reduced? Should we be having less penalties? Does a head coach control that? Does a head coach have control of who plays quarterback and knowing that you can bench a guy for 1 week and that taking a guy out for another quarterback doesn't have to be 5 weeks just because it's a rule in his head that someone, maybe Shanahan, taught him? When you replace the quarterback, the rule is it has to be forever. It's like, why can't it be I'm benching him for a week? That's the question I want to ask. Why can't it be we're benching him for 1 week and then we're bringing him back? We just wanted to try something different. It clearly didn't work. Speechless. I mean, understand, it's not just that we're losing. This is not watchable football. It's not okay. We deserve better than this. It's not football. It's not football. To watch a team week after week, there's not even a random weird week where we scored some touchdowns. No. Like where we scored like 21 points. No, we are literally watching the same thing every week. Every week we are watching our team go punt, interception, punt, fumble, punt, field goal, punt, field goal. That's what we're watching every week. It is not okay. So what part of that does Saleh have control of? That's what we have to figure out. He could have replaced the tight end a long time ago. He could have stopped using Dalvin Cook a long time ago. He could have given Izzy his chance a long time ago. At least we would know. If it didn't work out, at least we would know. He understood that you could bench Lazard for 1 week and brought him back. Why won't he do the same thing with Zach? Not that I want that anymore, because now I don't even care. It doesn't matter. The playoffs are gone. To me, once you know you're not making the playoffs, it doesn't mean shit to me. All these bullshit moral victories and, it'll learn how to win. It's all bullshit. We're not in the playoffs. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we win 8 games or 4 games. It doesn't matter. It means nothing. No one's going to remember it or care about it in a year from now. It means nothing. Does the Rams game we won mean anything? All it means is that's why we don't have Trevor Lawrence. That's all that game signifies. There's no pride in winning that game. And anybody who says there is a fucking liar. Or either that or they're stupid and full of shit. There's no fucking pride if you don't make the playoffs. It's bullshit. And I'm not saying they should tank on purpose because that might be unethical, I don't know, or immoral, and the fans have season tickets and they want to see them try and win, and that's all fine and dandy. All I'm saying is if every week they come out there and lose, I'm going to shrug my shoulder with each loss like this loss and say, at least I'm going to be a glasses half full guy and say at least we move up in the draft. At least we have a chance to get a better player. Because what else do we have? I hate that. When you come back, you lose all these games, you get yourself eliminated for the playoffs, then you come back and you win 3 meaningless games. 3 bullshit games that 80% of the fans aren't even watching because they already decided they'd rather do something on Sundays. Because there's no point in watching a team that's out of the playoffs mathematically. 6 straight weeks scoring 13 points or less. I know you would have fired him on the field. You don't have to convince me of that. I would imagine you, if they gave you that power, walking out on that field, dragging your daughter, you're holding her hand. You're so mad, you're walking fast, you can't keep up. So you end up dragging her. Boom, to the boom. Her 2 feet are banging against the floor. Boom, to the boom. As you're dragging her along, walk up to Hackett and say, you're fired. And then you pick up your daughter and you walk away and you go to this concession stand and you buy her some treats. I know that's how it would go. Peter Titman was a 2nd-round pick. He had a quarterback in the 4th round. Remember, Purdy was a 7th-round pick. Purdy was a 7th-round pick, but we're not going to know that. You could get a quarterback in any round, but it's not easy. I like Jaden Daniels. Jets and Lions, both underachievers, change head coaches at the same time. They get Campbell, we get Saleh, and the rest is history. And the rest is history. And you saw him in HBO Hard Knocks. You think Campbell is going to let that shit go on that went on in our locker room? That shit with the Mike White, I love Mike White, whatever, blah blah blah, and then the shit with Elijah Moore going home for a week, blah blah blah, and all the shit that we heard going on in that locker room. You think that happens if Campbell's the coach? Heads would have been rolling. Right at that moment, heads would have been rolling. Joe Campione comes in. He says to Peter, Bo Nix is Zach Wilson 2.0. I agree. Melts under pressure. It's true. He sucks during pressure. Playing behind the 17th best O-line in the country against bottom defenses. All true. All true. Don't get sucked in by Bo Nix. Don't get sucked in by him. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm not saying anybody, none of us have a magic crystal ball. Bo Nix could turn around and end up being a great quarterback. And, he develops and he learns how to play under pressure and he has a great arm and he, whatever, and becomes a superstar. I mean, but I think you should listen to Joe, though. If you're because you have to base it on you think he could develop. If you think right now based on what you're watching, he's an NFL quarterback, you should watch the plays, not the highlights and the plays they hide from you. You should watch the plays where he's under pressure. Because to me, it looks like Zach Wilson 2.0 as well. I agree. He folds. He collapses. Can't do shit. We have the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. It doesn't matter who we start. We also have to dumb down with the playbook because they suck that bad. They do. There's no art. I don't see. It's amazing because this is the time where all Jet fans should be able to be on the same page and agree because there's really no argument. The only thing you could debate is Joe Douglas. I don't think there's anything else that's debatable at this point. So I don't understand why they posed the question. He should have had an answer prepared. You're right. You're right. His press conferences are getting impossible to watch. They really are. My friend Tony Alexio, thank you for the super chat, says, screw Rodgers' feelings. Fire Ursula Hackett as soon as possible. I think it would help the players and the team. I don't know unless they love him or something, but I can't imagine that the players are not thinking to themselves, what the fuck? like how are they not thinking, oh my God, these coaches get up there and talk about accountability, and we have the worst offensive coordinator maybe in the history of the NFL, quite possibly, and he gets to keep his job. At that point, everything you say is kind of bullshit. A bullshit. The little kid in the I don't even Instagram with the little kid in the car. It's a bullshit. It's bullshit. You can't say that you hold people accountable and then Hackett still has his job. Don't you wish that into existence? Wish what into existence? The fungus. The only thing I like to wish into existence is food in my belt in front of me to eat. I think that Rodgers is going to come back or he's going to retire. It's not like he can go anywhere else. He can't go anywhere else unless there was a willing trading partner, and then he can go somewhere else. But I don't think so. I don't think he's thinking this is a mess I want to get out of. I think he wants to get on the field and play. I think he's probably feeling more challenged. Like, I think he believes he could win with this team. I think he sees the injuries to the offensive line. I think he's thinking if we could just keep Becton out there, he loves Becton. He loves him. They're buddies. He loves them. If they can keep Becton out there, Carter Warren is actually serviceable right now, and he's only a rookie, and he was injured all camp. So he could actually be a real player. Plus, we might draft somebody. AVT comes back. I don't know if we're going to stick him at guard or tackle. It's not as bad as we think it is. What's bad is they're injury prone. So we need to build depth. But we actually do have offensive linemen on this team. If AVT could stay healthy and Becton could stay healthy, combined with Joe Tippmann, that's three solid guys. Laken Tomlinson has played better. It's not great. It's not ideal. He's overpaid. But he's much better than he was last year. So we might be okay. Now we have to re-sign Becton. We have to see that happen. But if we keep those guys and if we give him an offensive line and then in the draft add some more weapons, add another receiver, and then you get Rodgers back, it changes everything. It could be a completely different team. So we've seen teams. Miami did it. Miami went from 1-15 to making the playoffs and winning the division. I forgot what year that happened, but it happened. So stranger things have happened. I mean, Houston is battling for a playoffs, but I mean, you just never know. Bad teams have turned it around and done well. Rodgers can't save this mess. Well, he can't. They're going to have to make other changes. Like there's other things, but staying healthy is big. Like I'm not making excuses. I know I don't want everybody screaming, "Oh, he's making excuses about the injuries." It's important, right? Like not using 13 offensive linemen because of injuries and having to use 13 different guys. That's kind of important. Like, and I'm not saying that's an excuse for what we're seeing completely. I'm not, but like, we can't argue the fact that usually Super Bowl teams that win Super Bowls, if you look at what happened to them in the season, they didn't lose all their offensive linemen throughout the year. They didn't have to use 13 guys. Typically, the playoff teams and teams who do really well are typically teams that did not sustain a lot of injuries. Like that's one of the typically they were fortunate and didn't have to sustain so many injuries. That's common if you look at past Super Bowl winners and you look at their rosters and you look at what had happened. They weren't like it's rare that a team is bombarded with injury and then wins the Super Bowl. Like with where they lose 3 offensive linemen and their starting quarterback and like that's not common. It's not common. Now we've been good, knock on wood. We've been good with our defense, most of our defensive guys staying healthy, avoiding major things since the Carl Lawson fiasco. His first year, we've been pretty lucky in that capacity. We've just had terrible luck on the offensive line, terrible luck, and losing Breece Hall last year, terrible luck. Offensive line matters. It definitely matters. There's Nick. I think he's working right now. Offensive line definitely matters. But you still have to look at the other things that they can control. And you still have to hold Robert Saleh accountable for the mess that is our locker room. It is a mess right now. It is a mess. He's saying they're playing hard, but they're not playing smart. It's not just playing hard, it's playing smart. They are not playing smart. They're still making mental mistakes. They are not disciplined. And if he thinks it's only about how hard they play, that's another shortcoming of Robert Saleh, of his understanding of football and how a team game works. It's not just about playing hard. It's about being the right teammate, and it's about playing with intelligence. Yeah, he would not have tolerated this. I agree 100%, Stanley. He would never tolerate this. Oh, was it Lionel Manuel was the victim? Yeah. I thought it was either him or Butch something, or Johnson. Johnson was the guy who stayed probably, but it was Lionel Manuel. Yep, so he was the guy, and he was good. We liked Lionel Manuel. Like anybody who watched the Giants back then liked him. He was good. He just did something wrong. If we had Carr instead, we'd have more wins this year. Well, maybe because he didn't get hurt. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think Derek Carr is blowing anybody away. But the reality is that if we had Derek Carter and he stayed healthy and we had a healthy Derek Carr all year, of course we'd be better. Of course we would. I don't know if we'd be a Super Bowl contender though. We'd be better and probably fighting for a playoff spot. I'm pretty confident we would. Now, if the offensive line would have went down like this with Carr, there's a chance that he would have struggled. But we'd be better than we are now. I think we would definitely be in the playoff hunt. If Rodgers didn't get hurt, we were going to be in the playoff hunt. Because he can handle. Now, I don't know if we're winning the Super Bowl with the injured offensive line, but I think Aaron Rodgers would have handled it enough. Like today, he would have been fine. There would be nothing wrong with Aaron. And we'd probably still have McCall Hardman, and Lazard would be more active and playing better. Like a lot of things would be different. if Aaron Rodgers was playing. And that's my opinion. I believe that. Now, would they be a contender for the Super Bowl? Probably not. We're probably seeing that there are more holes than we understood that there were. So I'm not going to sit there and say we would contend for a Super Bowl, but would we be better in contending and probably a playoff team? I think so. I do. Because I still think the biggest problem is about quarterback. And then I think the offensive line is an issue. And I think that with all the injuries, it would have prevented us from going to the Super Bowl. Maybe not, because maybe you make the playoffs and everybody's healthy. But no AVT is not ideal. No, well, but maybe if everybody else came back, I don't know. Depends if they had time to get in sync, you know. So yeah, he did bench Phil Simms. I remember early in his career, he did. He benched him. He wasn't running the plays right, and he benched him. Yeah, I don't remember that because obviously when the Lions hired Dan Campbell, I am not part of the. I guess I'm just not part of any group of people. Like maybe the Bears fans laughed, or like people who don't like Detroit, or maybe the Detroit fans were upset. Some of them, but me as a Jet fan, I was oblivious to it. I didn't know anything about the Lions. I just knew they got rid of the other guy who's from New England. The big defensive lineman guy that used to walk around, the crazy guy. What's his name? Patrick or something? I don't know. I forget. But like, I just remember they fired him. I didn't know anything about Dan Campbell, but I knew when I watched Hard Knocks, I knew that I liked Dan Campbell because I think most of the country realized Dan Campbell was a good dude when they watched Hard Knocks. Will Parcells almost made the playoffs with Neil O'Donnell and Ray Lucas. He was a great coach. He was a great coach. He turned Dallas around. He went to Miami as the GM or consultant. He turned them from a 1-15 team to a playoff team. I mean, Bill Parcells is a football genius. I don't know. Again, I didn't know who Dan Campbell was at that time. I didn't follow football and coaching or know about the coaches enough to even care because I just didn't know. I wasn't. All I knew about Robert Saleh was, the Niners defensive coordinator sounds like a good idea. But but do I wish I had Dan Campbell as a head coach? Yeah, hell yeah. I wish that he was their coach. I'm not saying I don't know that he'd be able to. I don't know that he would how he would handle all these injuries to the offensive line and the Aaron Rodgers injury. I don't know how he would have handled all that. But to be honest, you can't be worse than Robert Saleh because he's failed at everything he could control. I'll go back to that control thing that somebody made that great point. You can only control what you can control. Well, Robert Saleh has failed what he can control. So with Dan Campbell, it can only be better. Get a nice ham, ricotta, mozzarella calzone to relax after the disaster. Yeah, but I can't get that here. Where am I going to get a good calzone in freaking Sacramento? You can get one. You can go to Mezzalina. You can go to Mamma Mia. You got places down there in the Raleigh Durham area that you can go and actually get a real calzone. I don't. So if I was in Brooklyn right now and someone said, "Where do you want to go to feel better?" If it was Italian food, I'd say, "Let's go." I'd be in a field cutlet Parmesan mood from L&B, Spumoni Gardens. I'd go to their restaurant side, get a veal cutlet Parmesan hero, maybe a slice, have some Spumoni afterwards. That would be a nice meal right now. I could totally dig that. But if I could dig any meal in the world, I'd go to Peter Luger's. I actually feel sorry for Saleh and JD. They know what they have to do. It's very unpopular to have people calling for their heads, but they have to do it. I don't feel sorry for him. I don't feel sorry for Robert Saleh because a lot of what he's being yelled at for has been his fault. Like he's had the opportunity to change. He's chosen to be stubborn. He's chosen to not grow and to decide that he knows best, even though he's never won anything. He's never been a head coach. He's never accomplished anything as a head coach to feel that way. So I don't feel sorry for him. He also makes a lot of money, more money than I could ever dream of. JD too. They have a lot of money. I don't feel sorry for guys who get to do what they love. Because even if the worst case scenario is they get fired and Robert Saleh becomes a defensive coordinator and has a very high paying job to do what he loves, and he gets to be maybe he coaches, gets another opportunity to coach, maybe he coaches a college team, he gets to do what he loves, he gets to be around football, he gets to get paid tons of money to do it. There's no way I'm feeling sorry for the guy. And JT, the same thing. No way I'm feeling sorry for that. Not when I think about the jobs I've had to do and the shit I've put up with and the little bit of money that I've made doing it in comparison to them. There's no way. Feel sorry for me. Okay. You give me a $5 million a year contract for 4 years. Put me in there. I'll suck as coach. You could all abuse me. Fucking chaos. That bald piece of dungus. He doesn't know shit. You can insult me. I don't care. Because I'll take 10, 12 million, whatever I walk away with after the contract, 15 million, whatever it was, after the agents and tax. And if it's really that bad, I'll just freaking go to Canada, or I'll go into Hawaii and buy a condo on the island of Kona in a smaller town by a smaller part of the ocean that's more private, and I'll get left alone the rest of my life and live in luxury. So that's how I respond to that. Not going to feel sorry for him. Won a Super Bowl. Yeah, I don't think that Saleh's incapable of coming back and having a decent enough year to win the Super Bowl. Like, I think that Robert Saleh, and Aaron Rodgers, I don't think we know that at all. Aaron Rodgers could play the way he played last year with the Jets, and if the Jets have a top 5 defense, and the running game is better, if the offensive line is healthy, so we have a better running game with like Breece Hall with actual offensive line, and the other team not stacking the box. I have no problem thinking that we can compete for a Super Bowl. I really don't. And that Aaron Rodgers is capable if we give him the surrounding cast. But I think that we have blatant holes in this team right now that have been pointed out that have nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers, and we have things we have to fix. And a lot of that is depth on the offensive line. And we have to get consistency. They have to play together consistently. We can't keep just doing all these different combinations. You tell me about it, Eddie. I know. Huge letdown. Huge letdown. It is true. Brady went to a very different roster. A lot of you will keep saying, oh, I know that the Jets were good and we have a lot of good young players. But if you look at Tampa Bay's roster when Tom Brady got there, it wasn't one guy who was on the team for 4 years in Quinnen Williams and nobody else. We had one guy. We have one guy on the team that was on the team in 2019. One guy. When Brady went to the Tampa Bay, they had 15 starters that were all drafted that were ranged from 8 to 10 years experience down to 3 years, 2 years experience. He went to a fully developed team that played together in a system for a long time. Even though we had some young talent, we had no experience winning, and we were still bringing in new guys even into this year, and that have and because of the injuries to Becton and AVT and Hall, that still have not developed any chemistry or continuity in playing together. So it is different. You can't compare everything. But if we really build and stack the offensive line right now, if we fix the offensive line, give it depth, get healthy, have guys fighting for jobs, guys that are too good to be on the bench, but on the bench. If we have that kind of offensive line and they stay reasonably healthy through the year, so we never have to replace too many, maybe one guy misses a couple of games, and if that's all it is, and we can get a good weapon right away to help Garrett Wilson, we have a chance. But because we'll have an entire defense that's running it back for the 4th year in a row. And a lot of them now will have experience and will have played together for a long time. So at least on one side of the ball, we'll have that. We'll have a system that's been in place 4th year, players that have been in it. And then to make up for the lack of consistency on the offensive side, we'll at least have Aaron Rodgers, who already has some kind of rapport with Garrett Wilson, and we'll at least have Breece Hall. We'll have some specialty players, and they don't have to be the best offense in the NFL. That's what you guys got to understand. If our defense is the way they are, we don't have to be the best offense. We just have to score some points. Today, we could have scored 14 points and won the game. 12, because 2 points from the safety. All we needed was 4 field goals today to win. I'm not saying that's ideal and that's what we should only score. I'm just saying it wouldn't take a lot much more to win these games. We just need to score some points. Give me a healthy offensive line and a real quarterback and another receiver to complement Wilson, and we're there. At least on paper we are. Losing my voice now, guys. But I appreciate everybody being here. It's cool. I feel very nice that I've been able to vent. I hope this has been helpful for you too. I'm going to try to remind everybody we shouldn't beat each other up. We shouldn't insult each other. We shouldn't yell at each other, even if we disagree with each other. Because we're mad now and we're upset. And it's very easy to like cut into somebody when you're upset and blame because you're frustrated and you're angry. But you have to remember that we're all hurting by this. We've all been affected by this. We're all upset. Right? And we're all looking for answers and we're all trying to figure out why. And it's okay to disagree on why. Because that's a small piece of it. The real thing is that we're the fans of the same team and we're feeling the same thing and we're suffering the same thing. And we've stayed loyal the same way. Like this is what matters. This is what's important. This is why we're here. So it's important that we don't fight with each other and put each other down and insult each other. It's important that we like lean on each other and be a community together and get through it together. Because when we win, if we do that, when we win, and I say when because it will happen, when we win, it will be so much better if we're together and we're a family and we're united together and we're a strong fan base that's together and not divided. It will be so much more enjoyable than if we're by that time so scarred, we hate each other. Most of us aren't even coming on YouTube anymore to watch. We don't even want to see each other. And then you're just alone. So remember that. Keep that in your mind. We're all together in this. Yes, Tampa also had a great coach. Great point. That's a great point. Tampa also had a great coach. Great head coach. So every situation is different. Thank you for the super chat, Joe, though. Appreciate that. Appreciate the super chat. But yeah, you can't forget that they had a great coach. They did. Proven winner. Proven winner. And look what happened to Tampa the second that coach left. Look what happened to the Tampa Bay Bucks the next year when they then had to resort to using the Jets' old coach that we knew wasn't any good. I mean, nothing personal against the guy. I have nothing against him at all. I wish the best for Bulls. He's a good guy. He's a good person. You know, nothing bad to say about him as a human being. But we knew that he wasn't like the ideal head coach. You're funny, Wild Wave. Very funny. Sith happens. Misery loves company. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to hang around with winners. Who would you rather go out with a beer right now? 3 or 4 Jet fans that are pissed and like-minded? Or do you want to go out and have beer with 3 Atlanta Falcon fans as they celebrate and toast and talk about how good their young quarterback is and makes you turn red because you're like, what are you talking about? You only put up 12 points? So you're pissed because you have to listen to that bullshit? See, that's the problem, Charles. That's why I will never scream fire the coach until I know who I want to pursue. So until I have an answer, I don't want to say it because I don't know who's out there. I know that there's a certain college coach, Jim Harbaugh, or John Harbaugh. I mixed them up. And he's pretty good. And He might be someone to think about, but I do think that if you fire him, you have to have a backup plan. I see someone saying Bieniemy. I and I want to say this. Too. He's not going to listen and he'll deny it. But Tigo had this big thing talking just with Tigo. Oh, Bieniemy's done nothing. He's crap. And I said, wait a second. I understand he wasn't the main play caller in Kansas City, and you're saying he didn't have to do anything, and it was Andy Reid. I said, but why do you know he's bad? Why do you know for a fact that he's a bad offensive coordinator? You're challenging the evidence that he's good. Oh, I just know he's crap. I know he's crap. Well, why do the players say he's good? Why do the players love him? He's bad. He's crap. He's crap. He's crap. So apparently, Bieniemy did nothing in Kansas City, according to Talking Jets. Tigo. That's what Tigo says, is that Bieniemy did nothing. He has no responsibility for anything. He never did anything to help Kansas City, right? He's a horrible coach, right? He didn't say he might not be good. I'm not sure he is good. He said literally he's a horrible offensive coordinator. Now, Tigo would argue right now, if I said, well, he's doing a great job in Washington, he'd say, no, he's not, and because he invents his own narrative, and Tigo would make up this invented narrative that somehow makes it that Bieniemy is not a good offensive coordinator. And he'd be full of shit. Because Bieniemy has a young quarterback in Howell. And yes, they have their bad weeks because they still need a lot of help. They need a lot of help on their offensive. They need help. But if you watch them week to week, they're a million times better than we are. A million times their offense. And there are weeks where they don't look so good against good defenses. And then there are weeks where they score a bunch of points. But the point is they're doing this with the quarterback who's learning the league. So Bieniemy might be good, but I think he has more to prove. I'm not going to say he's ready to be a head coach. I don't know that he wouldn't be great. I'm not saying he wouldn't be great, but I'm saying if I'm a GM, I'm thinking I'd look at that guy. I'll keep my eye on him, but I want to see Washington build a top 8 offense in the NFL before I'm hiring him as a head coach. Like, it's his offense. He's calling the plays. He's developing it. He's got a young quarterback. If he could build that Washington offense over the next 2 years into a top 8 NFL offense, Bieniemy better have a head coaching job, because there's no better criteria than that, because he's doing it. I mean, it's certainly not Rivera. So he did the smart career move. If he believes in himself as a coach, Bieniemy did a very smart career move. He put himself in a place where no one can deprive him or deny that he's accountable for the results. If their offense sucks, it's on him. If their offense is great, time to become a head coach. And I'm starting to learn that I think I would rather, if the next time we hire a coach, I think I'd rather go with an offensive mind. Because you could hire defensive coordinators from off of teams, that have experience or whatever, that have a proven record, that are good defensive coordinators, as long as you give them a lot of talent, right? And Joe Douglas, if he stays, he knows how to do that. But I from now on, I want a head coach that knows how to run an offense. So if the offensive coordinator sucks, the head coach could take over and call the plays. The head coach could push him away and take over. Like, I need an offensive coordinator that's capable of running an offense, or a head coach that's capable of running and doing the offensive coordinator's job. So I am therefore deciding, based on what I'm seeing in the league, I want, based on Miami, based on San Francisco, based on Kansas City, I want an offensive-minded head coach. And that's that. And if they're a defensive-minded head coach, they need proof that they're an all-around head coach. Like, I need to know that they're all-around well-rounded and can still coach offense. Because there are some that are like that. See? Yeah, that's what I was saying. What is that? All the best teams in the league have offensive coaches. So there you go. You need creative. I want the creativity. I want the experience. I want someone who knows how to score points. And it's not easy. There's not. I mean, a lot of times, like, if you look at the best offensive offensive coaches, they have good offensive lines. They've been blessed with health. Their quarterback is healthy. Their offensive line is healthy. Like that's a big part of it is that. But so you have to look at when that coordinator's quarterback gets hurt, when they have a lot of injuries in their offensive line, how much does it fall? How much does it fail? Does it become, obviously it's not going to be as good, but are they still functional? Can they still score instead of 3 touchdowns on average a game? Can they score 2? Can they still score 17 to 20 points a game, even though they lost an offensive lineman in their quarterback? Versus we can't score double digits. We keep scoring 6 points. See the difference? We need an offensive-minded coach. I don't even know what Hackett's qualifications are anymore. I mean, when you think about the years he had in Green Bay, it's hard to count that as serious because it was just Aaron Rodgers. And maybe the best thing he ever did was the best thing Gase ever did. He stayed out of his quarterback's way. Then they point to the work he did in Jacksonville. And I remember when they made out that little run, but it was definitely a defensive-led run when Jacksonville went all the way to the AFC Championship game. And yes, the offense was more functional. But they were healthy. Their offensive line was healthy. He had a good running back. And they had a healthy line. And they had a very average, very meh quarterback. And that's what they played like. They played like a team that was very meh. And that was enough with their defense to make a run. And guess what? It didn't happen. They didn't beat New England. They lost, and they didn't. And then the next year they sucked and they disappeared. And Jacksonville disappeared for a long time until the whole Trevor Lawrence thing happened. So it's not like, he has that much of a background to really point to. And if you look at his most recent work, it's horrendous. Okay, really, Green Bay stayed out. I'm not even putting it down. Maybe that's exactly what Green Bay needed from an offensive coordinator. Someone smart enough to stay out of the fucking way and be Aaron Rodgers' buddy. Fine, we're going to get that next year. That's what we're going to get. But outside of that, when he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers with him, he's trash. He's trash. He's awful. But you know what? Next year, he's going to have an opportunity to bring it back with Aaron Rodgers. So I don't think Hackett's going to be a problem. He's only a problem if Rodgers is not the quarterback. Then he's a problem. The second you need him to be a real offensive coordinator, he's a problem. Green Bean is here. How did he get here? Everybody's been complaining literally all day. For me, it's all day because it's 5:07 and I was up at 9:30 talking to Green Bean, or 9:15 getting ready for the game. So it's true. It's all day. I took one break today, right after the game. The time between doing this and the game, I've been doing schoolwork. Midnight, I have some stuff due. So what's nice is what takes normal people 4 hours. I had to do a presentation with a voiceover. So there are people crying in the chat of my class, of my graduate class. I don't know how to do this. What the hell? How am I supposed to know how to do this? And it's like, I'm a YouTube guy. I went on to StreamYard. I shared my screen, went through my PowerPoint, did the voiceover, put it into iMovie, edited it, put it in Dropbox, created a link. Boom, I was done in 30 minutes. But then I had to do reading and all the other work. And I still got a little bit to do. So I actually have been on for an hour and a half. Wow. I am in so much trouble when I go downstairs. Like, she won't yell or bother me while I'm up here, but when I go downstairs, I am in trouble like you will not believe. Just know that as much as I suffered because of the Jets today, I'm about to walk downstairs in my house and suffer so much worse because I've been on streaming all day. All day, man. Just shut the recorder. Released it to Patreon and did for work. I come back and you're still here. I never stop. I never go away. I need the hours. Actually, I should have done this on my other channel. I should go on Brooklyn Brothers food review, and I should do this rant and just tell people on my channel and a post that that's where I am. Go to this link to watch me because we need the watch hours. And for any of you who haven't done it yet, please go to Brooklyn Brothers food review and subscribe to the channel and check out the videos because they're good. If you can watch me rant about this, there's no way you're not going to like watching me eat something and tell you a score and what I think of it. I mean, come on. I mean, you're watching me talk about the Jets. I don't know what I'm talking about. And yet you'll sit here for an hour and watch me. But when it comes to eating pizza, I know what I'm talking about. That's what I know, guys. That I could tell you I know. When you see me eating something and telling you what I like about it, I know. Trust me. I'm in a very unhealthy way. In a very unhealthy way, I know about food. And it's not a good thing. I mean, me and Greenby were like to the detail of, oh, well, I like it as a double-double versus, or I get my 3x3 at In-N-Out Burger, but I get a double-double with an extra beef patty because it's better with 2 slices of cheese than 3. And green beans, well, I like cheese, so I get mine with, you know what I mean? Like I'm detailed with what I like. So Brooklyn Brothers food review, check it out. I'm gonna get ready to go, guys. I can't do this anymore. But I appreciate everyone for being here. Since I absolutely gave no warning that I was going to come on. Pretty happy and excited and grateful that so many of you joined and came and checked it out and participated in the chat. I will be back on Wednesday with a very ugly human being. His name is Nick. He's so ugly, I might bring Johnny Jimenez into the game to balance out Nick's ugliness with such a good-looking guy if he's back from Cuba. So we'll find out. But anyway, take care. See you Wednesday, if not before that. And then I'll be back on Thursday thick of it, either in the back, in the front, back and forth, doesn't matter, whatever. My presence will be felt in some way. But looking forward to that. It's going to be another great week. Everybody hang in there. Tomorrow's going to suck. It'll get better. Remember, there's always the draft. There's always mock drafts. Basically, there's always tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
Let's go! We need JJ! We want JJ! We want JJ! We want JJ! Let's go!
JJ! We got Johnson! We got Johnson at 26! We got Johnson at 26! This is great!
It is Matt, it is Richie. We are hanging out with the Jets Lounge guys. Richie, my man, how's it going?
Matt, this is sick. We're at the Jets Lounge event in Farmingdale. The main event is what it's called. We got the entire Rucker family over there.
Jets!